Greetings to you, friends. Today we will touch on one of the most mysterious topics that concerns scientists, philosophers, and ordinary people for centuries. The topic that our understanding of not only life, but also reality itself, can depend on the answer. Can consciousness exist without a brain? Think, everything that we see, hear, feel, all our memories, dreams, and even the very feeling of I am, we associate with the work of the brain. But what if the brain is not a source of consciousness, but just a tool? Is it possible that the mind is able to live separately from the physical body? It sounds incredible, but it is precisely such issues that modern studies in the field of neurobiology raise. Let's figure out what the scientists have learned together and why their discoveries are increasingly forced to think. Perhaps we are only concerned with the tops of the iceberg called consciousness. Scientists have about 86 billion neurons in the human brain. They are interconnected into trillions of connections, creating an incredibly complex system. And yet, even having such data, science does not fully understand how the subjective sensation is born in this neural web, the very I that each of us realizes. The philosophers of the past argued more than once. René Descartes claimed, "Reason exists regardless of the body." Materialists, on the contrary, were sure that there is no consciousness without a brain. But modern discoveries again incite this dispute, already at the level of laboratory facts. Surely you heard the stories of people who survived the clinical stop. Their brain at this moment practically stopped working. But when a person was returning to life, he talked about amazing visions, a tunnel of light, a meeting with loved ones, a sense of peace and separation from the body. For a long time, it was explained by hallucinations from a lack of oxygen. But new studies have shown, in the first minutes after cardiac arrest, the brain gives out a surge in activity, like the last emission of energy. However, this is not enough to explain how people remembered the details of what was happening around, when their consciousness, it would seem, should have completely disappeared. There are even more mysterious examples. In medical practice, cases are described when people with heavy hydrocephalus of the brain tissue were greatly reduced. Only a thin layer remained. But such patients could study, work, communicate, create families. How is it possible? If the brain is so small, where does a full consciousness come from? These stories make you think, maybe the brain is not a generator but a receiver of consciousness. How does the radio catch a signal from space? Modern brain scanners have discovered a lot of amazing. Scientists have found that consciousness is not associated with one specific zone. It is distributed by many networks. Moreover, sometimes with damage to important areas, a person retains the ability to think and realize himself. And in experiments with anesthesia and deep sleep, they recorded bursts of activity which were accompanied by recalling vivid images. It turns out that consciousness can pop up even when the brain, in fact, is disconnected. And here the main question arises. If consciousness does not completely depend on the brain, then where does it live? What if the mind is not a property of biology, but the fundamental part of reality? In the next part, we will talk about the bold theories of scientists, experiments that turn over the ideas about the mind, and what amazing prospects are revealed to humanity if consciousness is really able to exist without a brain. Friends, we continue our journey into the world of science and secrets of consciousness. In the first part, we saw that the brain does not always behave as scientists expected. Consciousness sometimes manifests itself where, by logic, it should not be. Now let's look at the most daring hypotheses. One of the theories is called panpsychism. She claims, consciousness is not a product of the brain, but the fundamental property of the universe. In the same way as space and time exist, there is consciousness. In this model, even atoms and elementary particles have tiny sparks of experience, and the human brain is a system that connects them into a single bright flame of reason. There is another hypothesis associated with quantum physics. Scientists Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff suggested, consciousness is born in microtubules of neurons, where quantum processes can occur. And if this is so, then the mind is associated not only with biology, but also with the very fabric of reality, going beyond the limits of time and space. Scientists are actively investigating meditation, conscious dreams, and psychoactive experiments. It turned out that in these states, the brain begins to work in other modes, opening new channels of perception. Some researchers suggest it is then that a person can connect to a certain information field that exists outside the brain. Today, artificial intelligence is actively developing. Can he gain consciousness? Most scientists believe that so far there are no subjective experience. But exploring them, we understand more and more. Perhaps consciousness is a universal principle, and the brain is only one of the ways of its implementation. If consciousness is really outside the brain, imagine what prospects it opens up. New ways to restore memory and personality in people with brain damage, technology of direct interaction of consciousness and computers, and perhaps confirmation that our I does not disappear with the body. Of course, many scientists are careful about these theories. There is little evidence so far, but one thing is clear. Consciousness is a mystery is much deeper than before. It does not come down to a simple formula. The brain works, it means that I exist. So can consciousness exist without a brain? There is no definite answer yet, but more and more studies are hinting the mind may not be a brain product, but part of the universe itself. And it is in this greatness of the question, he forces us to look, experiment, and expand the boundaries of knowledge. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel, write in the comments what you think about it. Is the brain a source of consciousness or just a tool? And ahead of you awaits even more exciting stories about the secrets of the mind and the universe.